Today, we've got a little bit of a shorter, more tactical pod. It's adapted from the Sunday Whisper Ideas post you can get for free at gettacklebox.com/articles. Also, because we're not doing jazz today with the short episode, we've got 50% off your first month of Tacklebox going on right now with code HOLIDAY2025. Apply at gettacklebox.com, pop in the code when you're accepted. It is a 3-month program that'll help you start your business before you quit your job. Start today, and you'll have something out in the world by February. We usually get a bunch of eager beavers applying around the new year, so we'll likely be full pretty soon. If you're interested, get on it. Okay, on to it. Your in-person growth strategy. There are 2 types of startups. Ones that can visually pick their customers out of any crowd and talk to them, and others that have to do a bit of filtering before they're confident they're physically standing in front of their customer and can talk to them. Today, we'll talk about both. Because if you can't get in front of your customers in person, you're going to have a very hard time getting any sort of early momentum. And if you're already thinking, well, my customers are different, I can't get in front of them, you can. We've only had one startup in Tacklebox history that couldn't, and we'll talk about them in a bit. One of my favorite examples of the first type of startup, the one that can visually pick their customers out of a crowd, was Cropped, an early Tacklebox startup that was a hair salon for women with super short hair. The founder carried a stack of quirky cards around New York City and handed them to every woman she saw with that haircut. The reason she was starting the business was that she had the haircut and it required a different type of maintenance schedule than, say, hair that went past your shoulder. It required weekly touch-ups, but salons don't offer that. They only offer full-priced haircuts, which obviously most people can't afford to do every week. So Cropped was a monthly subscription service where customers could come in as frequently as they wanted for short 15-minute touch-ups. The business had a line out the door almost immediately, and that line came from the cards that Jess handed out. It's not the topic of today's pod, but the MVP was wonderful. Jess got a barber chair off of Craigslist and would set it up in a rented studio once a week. Touch-ups were on Sundays, and all her customers showed up. She had food and drinks, and they'd hang out long before and long after their cuts. Eventually, she added more days and availability, got her own space, and on and on. Picking people out of a crowd is an exercise in customer segmentation. The more circles you have in your customer's Venn diagram, the easier it is for you to identify your customer. If Jess had decided she'd cut any style of hair to start, she'd have to hand out cards to everyone. And the copy on her cards would have to be generic, and the service would likely have to be generic too. Because subscription haircuts don't make sense for people with longer hair that cut it less frequently. Everything, the product, the messaging, the acquisition channels, all flow from a hyper-specific customer with a clear problem. The way to make product, messaging, and channels easy is to pick a customer. From a marketing perspective, conversion is just a byproduct of trust. If I have a bunch of friends who have used your product, I'll trust you because they were successful with you already, and I trust them. But most startups won't have that type of traction-based trust early on, which means the trust needs to come from specificity about your customer. If Jess hands out cards that say, you have short hair, that means you need weekly maintenance to keep it looking right. Salons will charge you for a full haircut, so you probably just trim it yourself or don't trim it as often as you'd like to. We offer a subscription service that gives you as many 15-minute shape-ups each month as you like. She'll probably convert a lot of customers with that. The more customer-specific language she uses, like calling out specific salons they go to or terms for the hair, the more trust she'll build and the more people she'll convert. The combination of a specific customer and being able to pick them out of a crowd is a superpower for an entrepreneur. If you can do it, you should spend half your life at the places your customers hang out, talking to them. The highest ROI of any customer acquisition strategy for early stage folks is always in person, no matter the business. Okay, now let's get to all of you who have been listening but thinking, great for Cropped, but I can't find my customers in person. I need to use Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or a newsletter or fill in the blank channel that isn't going to work very well and will be incredibly expensive. Let me guess. You're selling B2B, or your customers are CEOs of big companies and they're hard to get in touch with and you're only going to get one shot and you can't waste it. We've worked with something like 700 startups since 2015, and only one hasn't been able to find their customer in person, and that's because those customers were incarcerated, which eventually actually made it pretty easy to do. Each of those common excuses, B2B or big companies are hard to find or you only have one chance or whatever, are actually reasons you should figure out the in person thing. It's like the old saying, if you don't have 20 minutes a day to meditate, you better meditate for 40 minutes a day. Like all uncomfortable things, the way to make them happen is to build a step by step plan, to remove the unknowns because that's what keeps you from taking action. The plan we'll work on today has three parts: filter, script, and media. Let's get into it. The process. During the earliest days of Tacklebox, we had a startup that targeted couples with kids under 5. There's data that shows happiness in a marriage drops by something like 80% the second you have a kid. And a big reason is that kids are a black hole on parents' time. It's hard to plan a date because they're exhausted, so parents don't, and they're unhappy. Our founder realized this and built a date Wingman, a service that planned and booked creative dates for couples with young kids. They'd even coordinate with a list of pre approved by the couple babysitters when finding a night. The founder could see her customers in the wild. They were couples with kids under 5, so she built a strategy for interviews and eventually customer acquisition. Each weekend, she'd walk into Prospect Park in Brooklyn and approach every couple playing with young kids. She opened with her stat about how happiness in the marriage dropped, then asked when their last date night had been. During the early days, this was a customer interview. Later on, it was a pitch. Why don't I book your next date night for you? When people were hesitant, she'd dig in. What was the risk? How could she mitigate it? She ended by handing them a card with a link to her landing page. This housed a short survey where the couple selected possible days, the sorts of things they like to do on dates, and their location. The whole survey took under a minute. The founder would then send along a few sample itineraries, each with a big button that said book. Her park days consistently yielded 10 to 15 conversations. All her first customers came from these interactions. They anchored the business. This strategy is the one we employ at Tacklebox, and it has three pillars: the filter, the script, and the media. Part 1: the filter. When you can see your customers, the filter is obviously much easier. It's all about where they are at any given moment. Where is their high density and ease of interaction? For the people that can't see their customers up front, you'll need to put in some work to find these customers. Here are some things that have worked. First, events. Conferences or meetups or restaurants or dive bars or anywhere your target audience congregates. For example, if you're building financial software for small business owners, attend small business expos or industry-specific gatherings. Join the Reddit or Discord groups they're in and seek out any other in-person meets. Number 2, location-based filters. Choose places where your demographic is likely to be overrepresented. A startup selling enterprise HR software might set up near office buildings housing tech companies during lunch hours. If you're trying to build an AI that'll be an agent for up and coming actors, you better get your butt to LA. The old put your ass where your heart is thing. Number 3, hub and spoke. Leverage existing businesses that already serve your customers. A startup building productivity tools for remote workers could partner with co-working spaces. I hit a brick wall during the early days of Tacklebox trying to find potential customers. Anyone can have a startup idea, and while there are lots of startup conferences and events, these are usually focused on people further ahead than the ones I was targeting. So, after a bunch of interviews, I found General Assembly, a company offering entrepreneurship and tech courses. Lots of people interested in starting companies in New York began by taking classes there. So, I pitched General Assembly a class I would teach called 30 Days from Idea to Decision. I ended up teaching it 50 or 60 times, an experience that both shaped our early approach and set us up with our first 20 or 30 startups. Also, I got paid to do it. Think about the path your customer is on and who helps them before they get to you on that path. The last option here is to create your own event. This is a bigger lift, but it works well if there's a wedge, something that you're able to provide that your customers really want. For Tacklebox, I hosted founder breakfasts at a coffee shop for years in New York City. Founders loved meeting each other and obviously checked out Tacklebox as I was the host and paying for the bagels. If you're building travel software, host an event where, say, boutique hotels all get to meet each other, something that would be hard if you hadn't facilitated it. The key to all of this is creating situations where you're going to be able to bump into your customers. And if you simply cannot find these people, that too is a real data point. If you can't find them in person, it is going to be really hard to find them digitally. Part 2, The script. The script is based on Tacklebox marketing principles and leads with problem language. If you walk around like a car salesman shouting, "Hey, I'll plan a date for you," the customer isn't going to be interested. This isn't problem language. But leading with the problem, "Hey there, I bet you two haven't gone on a date in how long?" Then, when they jokingly say it's been months, you say, "I actually started a business around this. My partner and I were struggling after our first kid, and I saw a stat that happiness in a marriage drops by 80% the second you have a kid, and a huge reason is parents don't go on dates anymore." Next, you move from problem to solution after the problem stakes have been established. A story here about how you came up with the solution can work. Something like, "At first, we thought we just didn't have time for dates, but then, on a whim, we hired a VA to plan us a date one particularly hectic week, and it was incredible. The planning was actually the hard part. So, we had the VA plan us dates weekly for a few months, and our marriage improved so much that we started a business." And finally, the swap. So, instead of our customers trying to find the time, pick a place, schedule, book a sitter, we take all that off your plate. We handle logistics. You show up where and when we tell you to. The script has three parts: problem language, a description of the problem so everyone's on the same page; a solution, which is ideally a little counterintuitive and a direct reaction to the problem; and then the swap, exactly what you're taking off your customer's plate. The beauty of this approach is how testable each piece is. So you can try different iterations of problem language or the swap throughout the day and see in real time how everything lands with your customer. The instant feedback loop for in-person contact is the most powerful part. So A/B test language and get immediate results. Finally, the media. The media is what you show up to the park or wherever with. There's usually a physical item you're going to give and a digital item you're hoping they end up at. The physical item might be an index card or a flyer. It shouldn't be a business card. It needs to have the three pieces of the script on it: problem language, solution language, and the swap. Often, founders will make 2 or 3 versions of these cards if they're testing out a few different problems. Keep them in different pockets and hand out the right one to the right customer. The digital part of the media is usually a landing page, and again, you might tailor that to the problem. However, a simple page that collects an email and presents a few filtering options — a great tool for this is called Tally, I'll put it in the show notes — is plenty. You can even use a QR code that takes people directly to a specific Tally form. The end. The best ROI for super early stage startups is in-person customer acquisition. This is because it's your best chance at actually convincing someone to work with you, but also because it connects you directly to the customer. The further you get away from your customer, and building cold email sequences or newsletters or LinkedIn posts or Instagram ads is miles away, the less you're going to understand them. A business is only successful if you understand the customer better than any competitor. The way to do this is in the trenches, handing out cards to people with short hair in Williamsburg or awkwardly approaching couples in Prospect Park. As always, uncomfortable stuff works and comfortable stuff doesn't. Specificity creates trust, trust creates conversion, and your best chance at this is in person. Every bit of effort it takes to set it up is going to be well worth it. And if you want some accountability, join Tacklebox. I'll kick your butt a bit and you'll have something up and out by February. Have a great week.